Hello, this is Ethica America, where we check in to see how America is doing. We are your hosts, Aaron, and we have
Mr. Poopy Pants.
Mr. Poopy Pants, also known as
I'm
uh,
I'm Ryan.
Hi Ryan.
Yeah, hi. It's nice to meet you, Aaron.
Yeah,
They call me Ryan Poopy Pants.
nice to do this introduction again because I
Yeah,
forgot to hit the record button again.
we're professionals though, so
Yeah.
keep that in mind, folks.
But they would have never known if we'd never said that. So maybe
Yeah.
they still think that we're professionals, but we're not.
Well,
We're
I mean,
just
it only took us about 15 minutes to realize it. So, I mean, we're
right.
probably still better off than I mean, God, can you imagine like somebody who just smoked a blunt, right? And they're like, they just had a 3 hour podcast talking about like whatever. And they're like, oh, yeah, I forgot to hit the record button, man.
Bet it happens all the time.
I'm sure it does. And can you think of the wonderful podcast material that's been lost to the ethers as a result?
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
All that's just gone because
Yeah.
you can't recreate something like that.
No, no. Fortunately for all of you viewers who want extra bonus content of our fuck ups, you can visit our Patreon page.
I actually
Wait.
did think about like saving some clips from recordings that aren't in the. I actually did think about saving some clips from our not actual episode that didn't quite make it, but kind of were
Right.
like tangents, and then just saving those clips and then adding that to that Patreon. But
Yeah.
right
We have
now,
some funny moments in those, so like I can't really blame you. Like we just get off topic, and it's like
yeah,
this is still really good entertainment. But
yeah, I thought about making like 30-second clips too for maybe not 30-second, but like quick segments for reels or for Instagram or some maybe other social media things, which in fact is what we're talking about today is social media.
yeah,
Wow, crazy how I
I mean,
brought that back around.
yeah, you did a great job there, sport. But I mean, I was thinking kind of the same thing though. So like, whether it be TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, I mean, wherever people are getting their entertainment, I just want to expose the brand, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So,
Where are people getting their entertainment nowadays? I mean, my entertainment comes from Instagram, YouTube, and that's about it actually. I mean, that's where I'm on social media. I don't really post on anything on social media. I deleted my Facebook. Oh man, a while ago. And now I'm just on Instagram. If I don't
yeah,
post anything, I just
you're a
look at.
lurker.
Yeah, I don't even know if I don't even know if you lurk on Instagram. I mostly just follow some webcomic people and then browse just random stuff that are interests of those webcomics. So I get a lot of webcomic suggested things to read it or look at, and then I got a bunch of like. We're not now. I'm just getting a bunch of like D&D related stuff too.
Oh man. But
Yeah,
D&D related stuff is the best. We should
yeah.
have an episode on D&D. We could even
Oh
have a
man.
D20 as a guest.
And then I get a lot of corgi stuff too because I got two of those corgis, and then I get
Yeah.
animal stuff because animals. That's just the most popular thing on social media, probably. I think. I don't
Oh,
know, other than
I
titties,
wouldn't.
but
Yeah, well, I wouldn't doubt that. Right. But like my favorite thing to watch on TikTok is red pandas.
oh
Fucking love red pandas. Like they'll just be eating apples, but they look so happy when they're eating apples. It's like you go red panda living that red panda life.
man, I wish that was just my life where I could just eat apples all day and just be so happy.
I mean, they always look so happy. I mean, I'm sure that like they miss out on doing other red panda things, but they're just cute creatures. So, like, I love when they like jump up on their hind legs, like they're trying to attack a predator, and they put their arms in the air and they go
Mhm.
rawr, and it's like, oh, you're not intimidating at all. I could kick you across the room, but damn if you're not cute. Here's another apple, red panda. This one's for you.
So I guess that's what people use social media for nowadays is looking at animal stuff and webcomics, and that's it. People don't join online communities to talk about how the best way to do something or to get all their news or information from social media. They
I'm
only use academic journals for that stuff.
yeah. I mean, when I go to True Social, I fact check everything.
Yeah,
Is True Social still a thing, by the
I have
way? I
I have no
I have
idea.
no idea. Yeah.
I've never heard of it.
Oh, it's Donald Trump's social media site.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, he literally left Twitter because like Elon Musk took it over and he's like, Elon is a good guy, blah blah blah. But my commitment is to my own social media platform, Truth Social now. And it's like, okay,
I
all
believe it.
right. I really want to go on there and browse some of that stuff though, because like I don't know. I have
It
a feeling the people who are there have just I mean nothing against anybody's political beliefs or anything like that, but like Mega's kind of a cult. So like
I mean, um, did weren't they like were waiting on the grassy knoll waiting for uh some person to come back from the dead to bring in President Trump's re-election into the presidency?
I have
Wasn't that a
no
thing for
idea.
like
I had never
two
heard of
months?
that, but it wouldn't surprise me. I heard so many things. But
QAnon. That's what it was.
yeah, there you go. I mean, I know that like everything's blamed on this secret organization that just wants the truth not to be heard, but like it's like I don't know, man. Like I don't get me wrong. I'm distrustful of a lot of things.
Hmm.
But there's a certain level of crazy that I have not yet encroached, and I don't plan on getting there anytime soon.
Like, I don't know who's using social media for this kind of thing, but it
Hmm.
has to be a big enough percentage of people because it's just so out there, and people are still also quoting these people,
Well,
and
I mean, you gotta.
that's
I mean, you gotta think about it. I mean, social media in general, right? Like, well, let's look at the recent Netflix ban, which I know a lot of our listeners have to be salty about. Well, I shouldn't say ban, but you are if you share your Netflix password with somebody now,
mhm.
they charge you extra if that isn't one of your home devices, right? And you can register the devices. So, like, if you're a traveling salesman or something like that, then
Right.
like you can register your device, and that's not an issue. You only get so many devices, but they started placing these super restrictive rules on anything. But if you go back to their social media post in 2017, they say sharing your password is love. So, like, it's like they did a complete flip around on their morals, so to
it's
speak.
it's love until money gets in the way, and then they lose a
Oh,
bunch of money, and then it's no longer love because they love money more than love.
well, the weird thing is, like, I read one of the reasons for this was because of the COVID-19 pandemic. It caused them a loss of profits.
I
So they're
can't
trying to.
imagine that.
Well, that's what I said too. I'm like, everybody was at home. The one thing you're not going to cancel is your Netflix. Like,
Right.
it's like that's your entertainment. Like, you might cancel Hulu, you might cancel Disney Plus, but like, they've done some other things too lately that it just seems like they're just trying to go through this money grab,
Hmm.
and their logic doesn't really add up. And like the people on Reddit are furious about this, by the way. Like, so as an example, like with the Witcher show, they Henry Cavill stepped down from being the Witcher, and they brought in Liam Hemsworth, who like they just showed a trailer of that last week, and it's like I love The Witcher, right? The show, I just don't even like put it in the same sort of. I just view it entirely different than the games or the books,
Hmm.
right? Um, the first two seasons, really good. Like, not gonna argue with that. But then this woman who's producing it, like, she seems to think that it is her creative liberty to do whatever the fuck she wants with a story that she ripped off from somebody else, and it's just loosely based on The Witcher now. But they brought in Liam Hemsworth, and he's just almost laughable as The Witcher. He's just I don't know. You'll have to watch the clips. I've been talking about it, but it's like it's just it reminds me of an 80s romance novel basically,
Oh.
but way douchier.
Hmm.
That's what he reminds me of. So, but I've never really liked Liam Hemsworth. He's whatever. But Not
I don't know who he
not my
is.
thing. Chris Hemsworth played Thor.
Okay.
I think it was Chris Hemsworth. Let me look.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. Okay. So he played Thor. That's his brother. So and his
Oh,
brother's had some decent roles. Don't get me wrong. Like I like Chris Hemsworth, but something about his brother just comes off as douchey, and I mean, in The Witcher is kind of a douchey guy, but like it's like they amped up the douchiness and then just said the plot, nah, fuck it, we don't need that. So, or at least that's how it seems. But that said, uh, the original um, the original actor there, he did I don't know, he did a much better job. I just realized Chris Hemsworth's from Australia. Yeah,
yeah.
he's like the only famous Australian actor. So,
What about
well, Liam, but
what about oh man, what's his name? He wasn't really an actor. He just did a bunch of stuff with animals.
Steve Irwin. Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought Steve. I mean, I think he is Australian, but he might be from New Zealand.
Oh, I don't know now. I'm not going to fact check that. I'm not going to Google it. He just said crikey a lot, which I feel like
Yeah,
is an Australian term.
yeah, but I always confuse Australian and New Zealand accents. For any of our Australian and New Zealand listeners, my bad, but like y'all sound kind of similar, so sue me. Steve Irwin was from Australia, so
Oh, good, man.
yeah, we're
Good
gonna get
thing
a
we
lot
were
of
right on
hate
that.
mail for my yeah. Well, we would have gotten a lot of hate mail for my indecision on that. So, but I get accents confused like no other. Like I've met some people who sound Irish, but they're just Canadian. I'm like, how does that work? Like, well, my poppy was Irish. Okay, okay, I guess I don't know. And then like I'll get Irish people confused with Scottish accents, right?
Hmm.
And it's like they sound similar to my ear, but my ear is largely untrained. So I'm just really bad with accents, people, is all I'm trying to say. Really bad.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah.
accents has everything to do with social media and Reddit.
Yeah. Yeah. Got that right.
I actually forgot that I use Reddit for all of my news because that's the best place to get your news is Reddit. Because, I mean,
Well,
everyone's going to comment on a post that is from a news source, and then everyone's going to fact check it because everyone really likes to be right on the internet.
well, yeah. I mean, it's funny that you mentioned that though. Like, have you ever met that person who like they're talking about how if you got a COVID shot, that a magnet will stick to your arm,
Hmm.
right? I was trying to find the origin of all that, right? But I largely think that that was just some sort of tool for somebody somewhere to spread their anti-vax theories. Which, don't get me wrong, in that respect, like your body is your body, and like you deserve autonomy over that. Like you don't deserve a government telling you, "Hey, you need to
Yeah.
get this." I mean, I'm not an anti-vaxxer personally. I got the COVID shot pretty much right after it came out, but simultaneously, I can understand how that sort of new mRNA technology could be scary to people. So,
Right.
like, I'm not an unsympathetic bastard. I'm just a bastard. So,
and,
like,
and that's kind of like how things start on social media is someone will say something but they'll take it out of context. So maybe they read something about I don't know, the 5G networks causing
oh dear God,
issues with people's
yeah.
heads because of magnets, and then they relate magnets to the vaccine because it happened around the same time, and so
Well,
they're
the thing
just
is, we've had a pretty good fucking idea of what magnetism is for going on 150 fucking years at this point. Like
I don't,
nothing's really changed in
yeah.
regards to magnetism. Like you might have iron in your blood, but the iron in your blood is actually oxidized. So like, it's not even.
Whoa,
It's rust. It's not
I'm
even like.
I'm rusting.
Yeah, you're rusting. Okay, that's what you're taking out of this. Good. Good.
Yeah,
Go
I'm
spread
gonna
it on
take.
social media now.
Yeah, basically, now that we've mentioned that we're all made of rust, someone's going to take this
uh,
information, post it on social media, and then someone that's not going to fact check it is going to take that and spread that, and they're going to start their own conspiracy. And this is how
oh.
birds aren't real and they're all drones. That's how that
Oh.
happens.
That's fair. And
And
much like Sisyphus, I'm bound to push a boulder uphill for fucking ever. So
this is how social media works nowadays. Well, maybe it's not all of how social media works, but it's how information spread. It's just from nonsense like this, and people not fact checking it, and they're hearing it from someone else at work or something that heard about it from someone else that heard about it from someone else, and that's how you get the world's flat. I've never met a flat earther, but I have met people that were like, no, NASA didn't land on the moon. And I'm like, oh, okay.
I've met a couple of flat earthers.
Yeah.
You want to tell me you want me to tell you my experience about this?
Sure.
They're fucking dumb. So just gonna be blunt there.
Yeah.
So but I'm gonna, now that I've said that, I'm gonna spread that theory all over the fucking internet, which
Mhm.
I probably just have scant evidence to spread it all over the internet. The first place I'm gonna start is Facebook, and I'm gonna convince my family and friends that I'm right.
I mean,
So,
a lot of people are on Facebook. It's what I heard that mostly people over the age, like millennial age. A lot of millennials are still on Facebook, and people older than that. And the younger generation is not quite on Facebook anymore, but they're using other things like TikTok and Twitter probably still.
Instagram,
But
yeah. God, yeah, Twitter. Oh,
I mean,
yeah, that's
Twitter is
come.
also just a Twitter is also just like a, oh man, it's
It's scary
there's
over
so many
there, right?
people. It's so many people are on Twitter that are high profile, and they're also spreading their word, and that's, I think, that's just another thing we have with an issue with social media is a lot of high profile people are spreading their word, and people are like, oh, you're high profile, you're an authority, you must be right because you must have some insider information, and your name is Trump and you're the president, and we should listen to everything you're saying.
He's not
So
on Twitter anymore. He's on Truth Social. Everybody here, go to Truth Social. It's the only place that you can get the real stories, the real facts.
yeah, but like he says something like that, or people will say stuff like that, where they're
I
like,
know
"This
they
is
do.
fact. The news is fake news," and we already know that the news is just full of propaganda anyway. So you're
Yeah.
already skeptical of the news, and then someone that's the president is also telling you that the news is fake, and what I'm telling you is real. There's this just
Well, think about what we've talked about in the past, right? So I have a hunch that most people on both sides of the political system, right? Most people just, how do I want to put it? They have a general distrust of the government. And can you really blame them? I mean, in our last episode, we talked about, and pretty much every episode subsequently, um, we talked about how the government is always trying at new forms of censorship and new forms of, you know what I'm saying, and it puts a bad taste in
right.
people's mouths. And like that's the sort of thing that you're going to remember for generations. Be cognizant of what you're saying, because
Mhm.
like when I was growing up, that's all I heard was you have to be mindful of what you're saying, because one of these days you're going to say something and somebody's going to take it the wrong way.
Yeah.
And like that's all I heard was just general distrust of the government. I mean, and to some degree that's merited. I mean, given the time that, the time period that they grew up, like but I do feel like we're starting, I'm not saying we're doing a good job of it currently, but we're starting to
Mhm.
see more politicians in office that are a little bit more transparent. Um,
Yeah, and transparency is good.
Transparency really is the solution.
Yeah.
I mean, that said, you're still going to run into those people who are like, well, you can't trust what they're saying. But if we have
Right.
multiple
And
sources that to verify that, trust but verify, as Reagan said, um,
yeah.
then we might be able to start steering the ship down a different path. But we're not there today. So,
No.
yeah.
And another thing we have is if people have these ideas already because they're hearing it from message boards. So let's say they're on Reddit and they're on their own little community and their own little message boards, and they all have their ideas. Those all those people, for the most part, are going to have some sort of idea that they all have in common. So it's this idea that Klein has, where it's this idea of a web of belief, where the center of your web of belief is something that you hold dear to yourself, that you have this idea that no matter what, it is never going to change. And usually at the very center of your web of belief is something that's universally correct, or there's a universal law almost. Like your center of your belief might be like, you're not going to believe a contradiction is true, because once you believe a contradiction is true, everything else kind of breaks down in life.
Right, right.
But outside
Well,
of that, it's a little bit more broad, and like maybe religion or politics are near the center of your web of belief, and then as those stem out, it's going to be less and less where people will say, here's something to contradict one of your web of belief. But if it's further out of your web, like near the far branches of it rather than closer to the center, it's going to be easier for you to get this new idea to add on to your web of belief. But the closer you are to the center, it's almost impossible for those ideas to go away. Like you're not going to convince a Christian that God's not real, and you're not going to convince an atheist that there is a God, because those ideas are almost at the center of your web of belief.
well, and a lot of this sounds similar to, how do I want to put it, to confirmation bias,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And there have been like studies upon studies upon studies from different psychological journals and all that stuff talking about how, like, uh, okay, so let's say that you have a friend that you like, right? You feel like you're alike with them. Okay, so first off, there's a difference there between whether you're actually alike with them or whether you just perceive that you're alike with them.
Hmm.
Okay, but we're not going to go into that, at least not just yet. Um, but if you feel like you're alike to somebody, then the things that they say, like, they resonate with you because they go along with your core values, just like you were saying, right?
Hmm.
And those things that you already preconceived. So if you already have the notion that, I can't think of an example right now, but if you already have the notion that the Earth is flat,
Hmm.
as an example, then you're not going to listen to all those round earthers, right? But as soon
Right.
as you find somebody who kind of resonates with you and agrees with the other things that you say, you're like, okay, I'll give this guy a shot, right?
Yeah.
Um, you start listening to him. He starts making more sense to you, even though his he might have the scarcest of fucking resources to back up what he was trying to say, right?
Yeah.
But you still believe with it because it goes along with your core values, and as a result, you start to, how do I want to put it? You start to add on to your web of belief, as you put it. So those
Mhm.
outer branches starts to get these little, like, ideas that are now starting to become part of your belief system,
Mhm.
right? But not only that, anybody tries to argue with you, you just vehemently defend your core belief and you're like, nope, this guy, he's real smart. He's the one who told me all these things, and I don't doubt him for a second. And if you doubt him, then it's the pitchfork to the ass for you,
Yeah,
or gun or
exactly.
whatever. You know?
And this
Like,
happens a lot of times. You'll this will happen because you'll have something in common. Like let's say you're friends with someone that really likes cars, and you're talking about cars all the time, and then you get to know them a little bit more, and then you realize that they're originally from, I don't know, some redneckville where they're super conservative and Christian, but that doesn't
you
come a
don't
lot.
get to point at me like that.
But that doesn't come up in conversation a lot. So
No.
they're talking about cars, now friends, and then they're maybe something on the news brings up another spark of conversation, and then maybe person A that's a conservative redneck that likes cars is friends with person B where they don't really think about politics a lot, so they might now go along with what person A believes for politics.
Yeah, I mean, that happens all the time, so and I mean, there's nothing wrong with, like, inheriting beliefs from your upbringing, so to speak, as long as you have an open mind about
And
things, like
that's how most of people get their beliefs is from their elders, their family. I mean,
yeah.
a lot
I
of
mean, we do live in a society where we're asked to, respect our elders, and even if we don't agree with them, we will listen, so
mhm,
I mean, but they lived in a different time, so, like, of course, they're gonna have input that's a little bit, like it's a little bit different than what we're used
yeah.
to hearing.
And
So, there's nothing wrong with that.
no, there's not. And I have friends that have more conservative views, and we get along just fine. I have friends that have more um, opposing political views than I do, and we get along just fine because we also have that common thing that we can always go back to for that, web of belief where we have something in common that we get along with, and
Right.
that's something I don't know. Now I'm kind of just
No, no, you bring up a good point. So, like I was saying before, um, when we tend to like somebody, right,
Mhm.
we tend to, I don't want to say agree with them on everything, because even though
Yeah.
I like you, I don't agree with you on everything. And you're welcome to like plant a bomb at my house if that's really what you need to do. But like, you see my point.
I'm always right about everything though, so I have no idea what you could be talking about.
Well, that's a good point there, and
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm over here, Mister Poopy Pants, just poopy pantsing it up. But
I mean,
so,
I do have this idea that Biden's our greatest president we've ever had, and I do know that you don't like Biden, so that might be it.
well, I mean, it's not like I dislike the guy. I just think that he has Alzheimer's, and somebody else has to be like tugging at those strings back there because, like,
Mhm.
man, like of all the presidential candidates that we had, like he's the guy. Like he can't even remember what day it is or what year it is.
I
That's the
mean,
better explanation. But
how old are you? Do you ever have to think about
um,
that?
I have
I
to
have to
think
think
about it
about it all
all
the
the
time.
goddamn time. Yeah.
I'm like, I was
But
born in
it's
86.
irrelevant for the most part. Yeah. And I was born in 89.
I was
So,
born in
like, I know that
86.
I'm 33, I think. I think I'll be 34 this year.
I'm gonna be 38 in
Oh,
January.
goddamn, dude. You're an old man at
I
this
know.
point.
I'm almost
Yeah.
40. And
Yeah.
we're gonna
Your
cut this
midlife
part.
crisis.
We're gonna
Oh,
cut this part out because
no.
I'm not gonna tell people I'm almost 40.
Oh,
Jeez.
man, I'll mention it later. You can't get away with this, you son of a bitch. That's a social atrocity that you're trying to bring up.
I do like
But
that people still think I'm like late 20s, so good enough.
nobody thinks I'm late 20s, but everybody sees my bald ass head just gleaming in the sun. So, like, that's probably a dead giveaway.
I mean, you're bald and you have two kids, so therefore you're in your early 40s.
Well, that's younger than I feel most days. So that's fine. But like I said earlier, so there's a lot of studies that exist backing up that we tend to like those that we feel similar to us. And I had mentioned earlier that there's a big difference between whether we're actually alike with somebody versus whether or not we perceive that we're alike.
Hmm.
Um, which that sounds weird, right? But think about it, right? Like you're about to meet somebody and somebody tells you all these things. Oh, he's smart. He's handsome. He has glorious hair. He can lift a cow over his head. And you're like, I can't. I'm not smart or handsome, nor can I lift a cow over my head. But somebody's like, oh, yeah, this dude likes video games. It's like, oh, okay. He's on Reddit a lot.
Hmm.
He's always helping people with his 3D printer. And it's like, okay, this sounds like a dude that I want to meet. Like, and then you meet him and he's like, I just tinker with 3D printers. I'm mostly on Reddit looking at like funny cow memes about people who think they can lift them over their head. And I'm like, yeah, that's not me either. And that seems humorous. Like, we both have a similar thing going on there. It's a bad example, but nonetheless, though, like,
It might be a bad example, but it sounds like this has happened to you.
I don't want to talk about it either way. But either way, So, like, let's just take it a step further, right? Like, I can fix almost any car, particularly a diesel truck. I can fix almost any of those, right? If I meet somebody who says that they're really into diesel trucks and they know everything, then like I'm gonna be like, okay, dude says he knows something about it. I'll keep an open mind, right? If they prove to be bullshitting me, then I'm not gonna like them. But if they prove that they actually know their stuff, it's like, oh, so we got plenty to talk about, man. You ever seen this Volvo over here? Like that? That
I
thing's a pain in
I
the
only
dick.
know Isuzu
Oh,
diesel
well,
trucks. That's it.
I mean, Azusa's are easy though. I mean, they're okay. There's nothing great about them, but they get by. Like they last forever. So, I mean, the people I know who have Azusa trucks, they don't tend to complain. But that's my point: is that it's the perceived likeness, the idea that you might be like me, that
Right.
makes people um, tend to like each other and react with each other. And we see this a lot on social media, but unfortunately with social media and even Google searches, right? We kind of live within our own filter bubble, so to speak. So when I say that, I mean like Google has its own way of interpreting what search results are most relevant for you, but Facebook does kind of the same thing where they want to curate their content for you.
Hmm.
And the idea behind Facebook doing that is that if we can keep this guy on Facebook longer, then we can promote more ads from him and we can gather more data for him to sell. So if you think about it from a business perspective, there's two angles that they can kind of get you at, so to speak, right? And but there are inherent dangers with keeping people in their own filter bubble, especially once you get to like the echo chamber portion of things,
Oh yeah.
right? Um, but maybe we should take a step back and really talk about why, well, the development of social media for a second and talk about why social media continues to evolve and why we continue to use it.
I do want to touch on um, why people continue to be that echo chamber real quick. And there's this guy named Kuhn, and
Coon.
Kuhn,
He sounds like a stand-up guy.
Kuhn. Yeah, he is. He came up with this idea of paradigm shifts, and it's mostly used in science, but I'm going to relate it back to Klein. So this paradigm shift is basically like you you have this theory, and it explains. Like let's just say there's the theory of relativity, and the theory of
Oh, okay.
relativity is explaining a bunch of stuff. But before the theory of relativity came around, there was this idea of Newton's laws of physics. But Newton's laws of physics didn't explain Mercury's retrograde, but Einstein's relativity could explain this idea of Mercury's retrograde with the gravity. So there is this huge paradigm shift from Newton's physics to Einstein. But before that, people were arguing the hell out of it because they didn't want to do that paradigm shift because they've,
Oh, I can imagine there was like a huge backlash about it.
yeah, because they spent their whole lives doing Newton's physics. And now there's just
Right,
some
right, right.
dude named Einstein with crazy hair that came up with general relativity. And it wasn't even supposed to explain Mercury's retrograde. But here it is explaining it by accident. And Newton was like, I can't explain Mercury's retrograde.
Well,
And
Newton was dead at that point.
oh yeah,
So,
but
like the people involved with Newtonian physics, yeah, I
Mhm.
can understand where you're going with that.
Yeah, so there's when you have a paradigm shift, you're almost like really hesitant to do that paradigm shift because you've built your whole life with this paradigm and
Well,
this idea and this theory, and
and
yeah,
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
and it's just really hard to move over to that new idea. And it's the
Well,
same with Quine and your web of beliefs, where you don't want to leave that happy idea of your center or your more centered ideas of your web of belief. You don't want to have that paradigm shift. So when someone's telling you like, here's all these facts that you don't want to know, or that are around you, to contradict what you think. You're like, oh shit, I don't want to talk to you. I'm going to go back to my little group now where everyone thinks the same.
Well, and that's really a fair point there, right? Because okay, so let's say this is a completely hypothetical example and the numbers are just whatever, right? Let's say you have a job where you make $50 an hour, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you absolutely fucking hate that job. But it pays the bills more than enough for what you need, right?
Oh yeah,
Definitely more than what I need.
yeah.
50 bucks an hour,
I
but
only need
every
like
day is
I only need like a quarter of that to survive off
right.
ramen.
Yeah. But off ramen. That's the ramen standard. But
$12.50. That's all I need, and I'll just live in my
but
car with my
right.
fiance and
But
baby and 2 corgis.
oh man. Well, Volkswagen just came out with an electric van. Maybe
Did
that's a good
they?
option for
Oh my
y'all.
gosh, we're
Well,
gonna buy an
they just
electric van.
announced it. Yeah,
I've
you
been
guys are
waiting
gonna
for
do
this
great.
van for years, actually.
I know you have. That's why I brought it up. But back to this for a moment. Okay. So let's say that you're making $50 an hour doing, we'll just say that you're a construction foreman, but you hate every fucking moment of it, right? But you're
Mhm.
like, it pays the bills, right? And it gets things done, and I have a little bit left over. And even though every day is hell, I'm only there from 9 to 9 every day, and I get a couple hours to myself, and that's just your life. You invest your time, you get paid for it, but like, you know, you're doing well for yourself, but simultaneously you invest a bunch of time and effort, and all that effort is just excruciatingly painful for you every day, I guess is all I'm trying to say. So moving forward from that, like somebody comes out and they're like, oh, I can do this for $40 an hour. And you're like, okay, well, I got to take a pay cut now, because like the industry demands $40 an hour and the company, they really need this position. This is all I know, whatever. And then it's $30 an hour. And it's the same sort of thing, right? Eventually, like you're just stuck at $25 an hour because, industry has just replaced you everywhere. Maybe you had to shift positions from one company to another for a while, right? But you're so invested in what this position does for you, right, that you're unable to look outside of that. You're like, oh, AI is taking my job. Oh, this, oh, that. And instead of adapting and gathering new, how do I want to put it? Gathering new skills, right? You've just kind of let it go this entire time, and this has been your whole life. And now all of a sudden it's the fault of the Chinese coming in and taking our jobs because I've invested so much into this. And do you see my point? Yeah. And that's kind of, to me, that's kind of how it is with Kuhn versus Newton, right? Or sorry, Einstein versus Newton. But that's what Kuhn is talking about, is that Newtonian physics this entire time had this way of doing things, right? But Einstein comes along and he's like, oh yeah, my theory does all this. And then somebody's like, it doesn't do this. They go to prove him wrong, but it actually proves him right. And he's like, oh, well, it also does this. And now all of a sudden everybody's really impressed by it. But everybody's so invested. They spent 60 years of their life doing things one way, right? And now we're at the point where it no longer we no longer need to do it that way. There's a way that's a little bit better. And of course there's going to be a little bit of backlash because of that.
Right.
And maybe that was a shitty example. I don't know.
Well, we're going to see another paradigm shift eventually because Einstein's general relativity doesn't explain a lot of quantum mechanics.
But we already know that Einstein's, like, that's already something that we're like, we just can't quite connect the dots to.
Yeah.
But
unless
in this event,
unless they just find something else that's maybe just builds upon Einstein's relativity and they just call it something else, and then there's just a paradigm shift to that. But
yeah, I'll give you that.
I don't know.
So,
But
but
people are, the gist of it is like people are hesitant to do paradigm shifts, even when you're a flat earther and you're at work and you're talking to your coworkers about flat earth and they're like, dude, that's dumb. You're dumb. And then your coworker is now like, oh crap. Now they know I'm flat earther.
well,
But you still work with them and you still have to talk to them. But now you have
on
to
a
find something
daily.
else that's common ground, like hopefully they like Snap-on or Matco tools.
I usually just revert back to that they like breathing air. So,
Oh yeah.
but then I got in arguments with people about that during COVID. So that's not exactly the best one to revert back to.
Yeah, I heard that. Why do we have to wear a mask? If I can smell your fart, then you can pass your disease to me.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
So they might as well be a doctor.
they should.
So, but I think we should take a step back and talk about social media here.
All right, so we covered why people believe authority on social media. We have covered why it's scary to have politicians on Twitter because they have an authority and people believe authorities. Um, what else? Why people have issues or why people are hesitant to change their viewpoints or hear other viewpoints.
Yeah, but we really haven't talked about how social media even came to be. Really,
No, we haven't.
um, and
We've been almost recording for an hour. So is there anything we want to touch on before we go down that road? Because that could be another part.
well, I mean, I feel like this would be quick.
Okay.
So the first, or at least what's widely considered to be the first social media site is 6 Degrees, which started in May 1997, which we established when we forgot to hit the record button. Like, I was 8 and you were like 10. So,
Yeah.
like, I don't even remember that. So, the first one on this list that I recognize is Friendster, but I barely even remember Friendster. I just remember something about it, right? But after that would be LinkedIn, which was established in 2003. And what you'll realize is that a lot of these social media sites they started either for oh, how do I want to put it? They either started for like business professionals trying to network with each other,
Yeah.
right? Or they started for dating or whatever else.
Yeah. Well, Facebook started because of they wanted to rate college girls how hot they were.
Oh yeah, I vaguely remember this conversation.
And MySpace started to, I think Facebook was also only for college kids, and then it branched off to
It
everyone could
was,
use it.
yeah,
So,
it was only college kids, yeah, because I was one of the premium individuals who could try it out, and I tried it out, but
I remember having a MySpace, and I also remembered having a Facebook because I was in college, and MySpace was my first social media, and my first. But my first real integration with like online communities was video games and being in a clan, or like in Diablo 2 you could be in your own little private sector with a bunch of people that you knew and hung out with. That was like my first introduction to it. And in EverQuest I was in a clan or a guild, but I don't really remember.
I did forget. There was a game, I think it was called StarCraft.
Oh yeah.
And I was in a guild there for a minute. I forgot about it because I was only in a guild for like 2 weeks, and I'm like, you guys are playing a game for 2 weeks straight, and like, I got shit to do. I got chores and stuff. So, but yeah, I vaguely remember that. Like, I remember being part of forums and stuff like that, just asking for like advice on like the carburetor for my dirt bike or whatever, right? Because I didn't know any better. I mean, I could have asked my dad, don't get me wrong, but it was like, these are people who I just assumed were experts in the field, or at least like knew a lot more than me because they had this very specific bike with these very specific problems. So, And while a forum might not be like what we consider modern day social media, it was definitely very similar at the time because that was probably back in 2001, so I was probably 10 at that point. So
Yeah, and I remember message boards being really popular, like 4chan. I remember everyone talking about what they were reading about on 4chan or all the weird stuff that people post on 4chan. And that's just a bunch of
mm,
like-minded people getting together with their like-minded ideas, spreading
yeah,
other ideas to young individuals that might be corrupting the youth.
I remember Tom being my only friend on MySpace.
I remember MySpace and me making my top 5 and then going to other people's top 5 and or
Oh
top
God, yeah,
6.
well, at the time there really wasn't any other way to find new music. I mean, there was like Pure Volume,
Mhm.
right, which was the site that I don't know, it probably came up around 2002, 2003 or something like that, right? And you could find new bands and like people who you were interested in seeing, but it was always a bitch to find a band that like you actually liked.
And now it's
The only re-
impossible.
Yeah, now, yeah. Well, that's because there's no good music being created. I came to
Oh.
that conclusion like 2 weeks ago. I'm sure there's still good music being created. It's just what Spotify curates for me, I think, is largely just people who pay for having their band promoted, so to speak.
Yeah.
My Discover Weekly is trash. So, but maybe I'm just so unidentifiable. I don't know. I've got like 1,000 like songs, but Spotify can't figure it out.
Mhm.
So whatever. Either way, they offer um, more songs than any other streaming service, and I like some of these obscure ones that I've heard. So
You can also hear podcasts on Spotify.
you can, including this one, but you can
Probably.
also, I don't know. Yeah, we haven't gotten that far yet. So
We're almost there. I actually just made
yeah,
our Patreon page like 3 nights ago.
yeah. I've been trying to make our website for 2 weeks now, and I haven't gotten anywhere with it. Every
Oh.
time I sit down to try, my daughter wants something, and it's like, okay, we can play for a little bit, and a little bit turns out to be 3 hours, and then by like 9 o'clock at night, I don't want anything to do with people anymore. I just want to go to bed. I'm a lazy old man.
Um I think Podbean has just like our generic website for this, but
Nah, I'll do better. It's less of a matter of I just need a day to do it,
Mhm.
really more than anything else, and then we can make revisions as we go. But yeah, kids. Ugh. So
My kid's
either way, though.
my kid's eating right now. Oh
Oh
wow, we're
yeah,
using a bigger bottle now with a whale on it.
baby bottle pop. Wait, is he eating out? Is she eating out of a baby bottle pop?
Mm-mm.
Oh,
It's the
okay.
Advent Phillips bottle.
Oh, that's not a baby bottle pop.
No,
The
it's
baby
not.
bottle pop was you lick the pop, dip it, and shake it, and then lick it again. It's the baby
Oh
bottle
yeah,
pop. Yeah,
yeah. One of those
yeah.
'90s snacks.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't even call it a snack. It was just 90s sugar. Oh man. Yeah. Kids are weird.
They are.
So,
Oh
yeah.
shit, where were we?
I don't know.
We were
No,
talking
but
about.
we were talking about Tom
Oh yeah,
for a
and
second.
my top 5
And then
friends, and I had to make sure that my top friend on MySpace also had me as their top friend. If they didn't, we had a fight.
oh, I thought you were talking about top 5 music songs cuz at some point MySpace made it so that way like they tried to switch to like more of a music blog sort of interface
Mhm.
sort of thing. It's really weird. But
And if I was dating
but
someone, they had to make me their top 5, and I had to make them their top person.
man,
And whether it's top 5, top 6, top 8, I don't remember which one it was, but it was one of
yeah.
those. But number one had to be your partner, otherwise you broke up immediately.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, but most of the time, the people I dated wouldn't even make my top 10 list. So, it's probably why most of my dating stories end in tragedy. So, But yeah, I mean, so like eventually, like Facebook comes on the scene, right? And like uh, at first, they decided that they were just going to make it exclusive for college kids.
Hmm.
So, um, but and it's kind of weird because like when you went, I think you went to the same university that I did,
I went to Akron.
but yeah, ditto. Um, but you went to the same university that I did, and you were definitely there around 2007, 2008, right?
Yes, I was enrolled
Yeah.
from 2005 up until 2013.
Mm-hmm.
So, maybe wait, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, maybe 14. I think 14 was
Yeah.
my last year where I'm like, that was my last year where I took 2 classes in 14, I think.
Yeah.
And it was that fall. So yeah, I was there. I never
Yeah.
saw you.
I never saw you, but I don't know that you would have recognized me then, though. So
Um, let's
I don't
see.
know that I would have recognized you
I
then.
didn't have a giant beard.
Well,
I was
yeah, and that would be the indicator right there.
yeah. I
Yeah.
didn't have
And
I didn't have my
I had
giant
e-
bright beard until like the past 10 years. No. 5. Last
yeah,
5 ish.
yeah. I had hair when I was in college. So like, and it was like giant emo hair too. It was like
Oh
colored a
man.
different color every week.
No, I would not
I
recognize
stuck
you.
out like a peacock. Yeah,
Were you a peacock? Were you peacocking for college girls?
all the ladies. No, I was in a band at the time, and I thought I was gonna make it big, but I had a lot of naivety in me. So you
Man,
know, yeah,
I never thought I was going to do anything with my degree.
yeah,
And here I am making a podcast trying to do something with my degree.
yeah.
I didn't even
Well, if it
finish
makes
my
you feel,
degree. 6 credits
yeah,
short.
yeah, yeah.
Maybe I'll go
You're not
back.
too far off from me. Yeah, yeah. I plan on going back,
A
but
lot,
engineering's
actually,
a lot.
that brings up a thing where a lot of my personnel like beliefs came from college, from like
Yeah,
28 forward. Like none of my ideas or beliefs have really changed. Like my web of belief, my branches have pretty much been stagnant since like when I was 27 for like the past 10 years probably. But I mean,
well, I mean, you're part of the problem.
some of them have
You're
changed a little bit, but then again, I'm always right. So
yeah, 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 and you're very assertive about that.
yeah,
So
I do I do kind of have this idea that like what I say, I believe what I say, and it takes a lot for me to kind of change my viewpoint.
well, and I mean, I, I'm not saying that like, I mean, because there's how do I want to put it? Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-mm.
Like, you know where you stand.
Yeah,
You have your web of belief. You you know what things you think are ethical or at least good for you,
right.
right? And there's nothing wrong with that. The issue I have with any time that I go on my Facebook, which is just it's not even a select curation of the people who I want to talk to. It's a select curation of the people who are like, why aren't we Facebook friends anymore? And it's like,
Right.
because I'm not on there. Like, I get on there to post some stuff on Marketplace every now and again,
Hmm.
like just to get rid of it.
Yeah.
You know,
And
but
my issue with social media is just people spouting misinformation and taking it as truth.
right. And let's talk about the type of person for a minute, like that likes to spout said misinformation. Um, like to quote Danny Wallace as an example, right? He's the author of the book "Fuck You Very Much: The Surprising Truth About Why People Are So Rude," which I haven't actually read it, but it's on my to read list as a just as an aside. Like it, it seems like he's got some points.
Hmm.
So, but he says people feel they have to share their opinions on everything, everywhere, at all
Yeah.
times, even if it's backed up by scant knowledge. And then they have to broadcast that opinion, importantly, and in a forthright manner so that they cut through the noise. And rudeness is what cuts through the noise. But have you ever noticed how people online, they tend to be more verbose, so to speak, than if you were to have a conversation at maybe like your local Starbucks or
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
So
it's
it's funny.
easier to type online when you're not looking at someone. And also when you have
Well,
like 20 minutes to type one sentence that you're typing over and over and over.
it's funny because in that book, and like keeping in mind, I only really read the clip notes of it, but he says the latest research says it's actually a lack of eye contact that allows us to be particularly rude to people.
Oh.
So, like, I mean, he's got points. Like,
Mhm.
and you even backed it up. You're like, yeah, you're not looking them face to face.
Mhm.
Like, of course, that's going to be easier. Plus, online, like, depending on what website you're on, like, you can uh, choose to be more anonymous if that's what you prefer.
Right.
So it doesn't actually have an effect on your, I don't want to say your real life, but
There's no consequences.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's largely contingent on which social media platform you're on. Like um, like on Reddit, as an example, I could take the username Mr. Poopy Pants 317.
Hmm.
So, and nobody's going to be able to correlate that to me. They might think, oh, 317, that's got to be an area code for a phone number. It's not. It's what Reddit fed me. Um, and it's not even my real username or anything
And
like that. But
it is funny because a lot of people do have like their email addresses with like maybe the first four of their address.
the weird thing is that like studies have shown that people act different online, and it's commonly referred to as the online disinhibition effect,
Hmm.
right? Uh, But depending on the person, it's not actually always a negative thing, which I thought was kind of weird, right? So studies have indicated that most people act one of two ways when they're online, right? But sometimes this can actually lead people to be more open and supportive online than they would be um, in person, right?
Oh, interesting.
And yeah, I thought that was really weird too because we only think about the negative effects, but apparently there's a decent portion of these people who are out there just like, trying to be like, hey man, like I suffered from substance abuse. This is nothing to be ashamed of. Just get your shit together, sort of thing. Like positive reinforcement, sort of thing. Whereas, like, if they met somebody who was a drunk on the side of the road, they might just drive right past them, not even think twice,
Hmm.
right? But this type of disinhibition is referred to as benignness. God, I can't even talk. This type of disinhibition is commonly referred to as benign disinhibition by at least by researchers, anyhow. But I mean, there's also that toxic online environment that it's the adverse to this, and by researchers, it's referred to as toxic inhibition. And I mean, people can act different in other ways too. These are just the two main ways as far as people change how they act online, anyways. Which is, I mean, that kind of makes sense. Like somebody who maybe they're not happy with their life at home, they want to be a positive influence somewhere. They
Hmm.
don't really even care where. They might stem out and be like, you know what, I can be a positive influence online, and that's fine. Whereas somebody who like is just unhappy with the world and wants to watch the world burn, I'm not saying like a nihilist or anything like that, but just somebody who's generally discontent, they might be like, okay, well, I am just going to take out my emotions on anybody I encounter online.
Yeah,
And it's easy to do that
it
under
is.
the shroud of anonymity. So, I don't know.
Hmm.
Just kind of interesting. So,
I mean, I inherently think that the internet and social media is good. I do think that a lot of bad comes from it, though. And I haven't.
Well, it's just like any tool.
Right.
So,
Just like
yeah.
AI, where I asked one AI something and another AI did the same thing, and they came up with two different answers.
Right. I would love to pit AI against AI one day when we do an AI episode, by the way. I just want to hear them argue for like a half hour. Probably not even that. We'd have to take cliff notes out of it, and then we're just being biased at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, that's why we started this podcast, was so we can put our opinions out for the world and to convince people that we're right.
I never think I'm right. I just think that I'm somebody who just sifts through the bullshit. The earth is not flat, people. Let me tell you that initially, just right out the get go. And now we have a like opinion, and we're probably similar now. So, like, anything that I say at this point, we're, you know, we're practically the same, and therefore buy our new book.
Yeah, and we've also lost everyone that believes that the earth is flat now.
Oh fuck.
You know, we got them
Also,
for
we
the
don't
first
have a book yet.
first few episodes, but we lost them here.
How do you think we could make a book? How quick do you think we could make a book?
Oh man, if AI could probably write us.
I just promise. Well, that's a good point. Yeah, thank God for AI, because I just promised them a book.
Well, luckily we didn't give them a date.
Yeah, February 2032. Look out, everybody.
We'll just go with the J.R.R. Martin approach, because I don't think he's even finished Game of Thrones yet in the books.
Oh, hasn't he?
I don't think so.
No. I know that he takes his time and then writes a bunch about sex. And sex is wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because because making babies is wrong. It's unethical.
No, but making babies out of wedlock, that's not something that MAGA will tolerate. They need to be married and the women need to be suppressed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they actually suppress women. It just seems like I hear an awful lot of male opinions and never anybody who's non-white Christian male. Never hear, except for Clarence Thomas. He did speak upon MAGA once.
Oh man, a lot of stuff in the news is coming up with him.
Yeah,
he's a good guy.
Yeah, well,
but except he's not.
Yeah, he's kind of biased, and his wife is kind of radical, and he seems to just be kind of trying to keep his wife out of the limelight. But his wife wants to be in the limelight.
I mean, all they have to do is stop taking money from people and then not reporting it.
That would be ideal.
Oh,
but Aaron, money. I'm gonna take whatever money I want. So that's my life. I'm not actually gonna take whatever money I want. So I mean, but going back to this though, like sarcasm aside, it seems like a lot of these communities online, regardless of where you go, whether it be Facebook and it's just your friends and family, or Reddit where you're part of some sort of I don't know, coffee tasting community or whatever. Regardless, it seems like you kind of find these little cliques along the way.
Right.
And it can be very easy, depending on the community, to spread your beliefs amongst these cliques. And Seth Godin is the author of a different book. And I've read parts of it. I've never actually read the whole thing. But his book is called Tribes. And his idea, and it came out over a decade ago at this point. Seth Godin, for those of you who don't know, he's in the marketing industry, and he's very good at what he does. But around the time that he wrote this book, he kept saying mass marketing is dead, which To understand mass marketing, that's an entirely different episode, and we'd have to get into Edward Bernays and all that sort of stuff in between. But
Marketing just
he
sounds
goes,
like a fancy word for propaganda.
it kind of is, but it's more just like propaganda for certain fruits or certain products, whether that be bananas from United Fruit or the latest 3D printer. Doesn't matter. People will try to sell you on specs all day, even though they don't know what the hell they're talking about. Most of the stuff, as far as like Facebook ads and stuff like that, most of the stuff people don't have a fucking clue what they're even trying to market. So, I mean, it could be complete hogwash, and they're just told make it sound good, and they're like, okay, so here's this 3D printer. It does great things. It has an accuracy of 1 millimeter. 1 millimeter. Can you have a better accuracy of 1 millimeter?
I do.
No, that's because your hand is the 3D printer, and this is the 3D printer pen.
That actually would be a really good invention, the 3D printer pen.
It exists already.
Oh, does it? Man, that sounds great.
Yeah,
You could just
it really does.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah, you can freestyle it.
I actually do remember seeing a weird video where someone's using like a 3D printer pen on like a sidewalk to
fill in the cracks or some shit
or something like that.
It is useful for fusing things, I will give you that, but at that point it's not really a 3D printer pen, it's more of a filament. I don't know. It's basically just used for fusing things at that point. It's not really used for anything else that's useful.
Yeah.
Because could you imagine, like, it takes a 3D printer like 5 hours just to make the what is that thing called? Tuggy, I think it is. To make Tuggy, and that's like the standard benchmark for a 3D printer, right? It takes 5 hours. So could you imagine somebody sitting there for 5 hours being like, oh, the filament's going through, I'm making whatever I can, like with a pen at that, which probably has a lower wattage, so less heat dispersal, because it probably runs on a battery, and the battery probably dies eventually.
You're really getting into
it would look like
3D
shit.
printing lately, haven't you?
No. I'm certainly not modifying Marlin firmware. Yeah.
We haven't even discussed.
I know. All my...
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I was just thinking, we haven't even discussed if corporations are using social media to spread propaganda.
Oh, they definitely are. But once again, like, to get into that, you would have to get into Edward Bernays and marketing and all that stuff. But yeah, like Obama's campaign in, his first campaign, which happened when I was in college, right? That largely was a social media campaign. It was new technology at the time, but it allows you to hit a target audience that's not quite as invested in their ideas, not quite as committed, so to speak. So basically it allowed him, because Facebook, remember at the time, Facebook was only allowing college students to use Facebook, and I think they even called it a trial at one point. So you have all these young influential minds, and their campaign was basically, fuck it, we're going to use this, right? Which I like Obama a lot, but like John McCain, like, god damn, do I love that guy. And I'm not, once again, I'm kind of middle of the road, but it's but politicians have used it to accomplish their agenda, specifically because of the ability to be able to target so effectively. Like, it's actually kind of incredible technology when you think about it. The people who might already be interested in supporting you, you can get your message out to them. And the people who are on the fence about it, you can probably figure out, things that they're looking at on Google or Facebook, find their interests, and then target those as well. Like, that's kind of incredible when you think about it. Caveman couldn't do that, so.
The caveman couldn't do that.
Yeah.
Man, is there anything else we need to talk about for this episode? more to social media that we should bring up for part 2, or do we need a part 2 of social media?
We could talk about confirmation bias a little bit more, but we already touched on it. It would just be kind of like beating a dead horse,
Yeah.
but that's mostly the issue with social media is confirmation bias. You find your own little online community, your own little online tribe, right? That they agree with everything you say, and then as a result of them being likable perceivably, you end up being like, oh, okay, these are my guys. Whatever they say,
Mm-hmm.
probably factual because it's proven that way in the past, right? I mean, we could talk about, what's the word I'm looking for?
And I know like Discord is really good at like breeding more confirmation bias or like-minded people too, because you could always just join the community and talk to everyone.
Yeah. And I mean, there's nothing inherently wrong with social media itself. Like now, organizations like Facebook, that everything that you look at that they're tracking is data gathering. Is that inherently unethical? I guess it just depends on how it's used.
Yeah, I mean, I did read somewhere that and I do think this is true, that Facebook isn't inherently right or left, but they are paying or getting paid or looking to get the most money out of something that's bringing in the most traffic. And the most traffic tends to be something that people will have arguments over, or say like, this is controversial, I hate this. So even if
Polarized opinions.
Yeah, so even if something is true and someone doesn't believe that it is true, they're going to push it more because it gets the most attention and it brings in the most people staying on the site, which brings Facebook the most money.
You know what I really want to do now?
Make a Facebook.
I really want to. Well, I'd have to start there, but actually, I've already got one. But I'd create a fake one for this, which is against Facebook's rules and regulations, by the way. But what I want to do is I want to create a website for flat earthers that goes through how I thought the Earth was flat, but then I was wrong, and I've become more well-rounded as a result. And then I want to promote this through Facebook advertising.
Mm-hmm.
The Earth is probably flat, but maybe it's not. And I want to try to breach into that web of how do you want to call it, or
Web
how
of
do you
belief?
call it, the web? Yeah, I want to breach into that web of belief about how I was a flat earther, and I couldn't believe it myself because everywhere I walked, it was flat. But then I had a little bit more of a, I guess you could say it went full circle for me. Where do you see what I'm doing here?
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
I like it. Next time I find someone that's a flat earther on the fence about it, I'm going to try and convince them. And then at the end of it, say, do you feel like a more well-rounded person?
yeah, it's exactly that. No, they just have a flat affect the entire time.
Perfect.
That's what I want to do.
Well,
I might actually do this, believe it or not, but it'll be kind of little snippets. I got to find a good Reddit. I don't know. In a month, we're going to see if I actually revisit this.
Well, if you enjoyed this episode, then you can listen to our other episodes wherever you found this episode. Also, if you feel like supporting the channel, you can tell your friends. And if you want to find our Patreon, totally can.
I'm definitely going to do this.
And post it on your social media and be like, oh man, these people have the exact same ideas that I do. And they're
yeah, but then they ended up going to this whole round world theory.
They had me in the first half, and then lost me when they were like, the Earth is round, and I'm like, no.
Wait, the first half just said hello. The last half said goodbye. What are you talking about? Like nobody fact checks this.
No, I mean we don't even fact
It'll
check
just be an
us.
anime. Yeah, I mean, like it'll just. Anyhow, so long, America. I'm Ryan,
Marin,
or Mr.
goodbye.
Pooping Pants.